going to use this shirt. If you remember it, it was that really loose weave sample I had picked up while I was working. And, you know, I'm going to demonstrate just a quick binding edge treatment here. This is something you can do if you have an old garment that you know you're going to cut up and use for something else. I've just cut the collar off, and I've actually taken the pockets off, but that's something else. And now I'm just kind of cutting let me do this way. Just cutting this corner off here to make a smoother line. That's not necessary actually, but I want this to be sort of kimono style, so I figured that that's fine. And I'm going to start the edging from here because I've decided that it might be nice just to edge this part and leave these buttons intact here for the bottom. So I've never done that before, I just want to try that. And your basic binding is just like seam binding, but it's a little bit larger. At least my standard size is about a 4-inch strip of fabric that I've ironed in half and then ironed that in again. So what I'm getting is about 1 inch of binding. And having these things folded in here gives you a little bit of body. You don't have to have that, but that's just a basic common procedure that I use. And then you just slide your, I'm starting right above the buttonhole here, you just slide the edge of your garment into that center crease and fold it over. Now, this is something that's like so simple that it may be simpler than you think. And you just keep pushing the edge of your garment into the center of the seam binding. And what I do is just kind of straighten the edge out and keep pushing that in to catch it. Now as you get around to the curve, you just want to straighten out the edge of what you're working on. And continue to do the same thing. This doesn't have to be perfect, you know, sometimes it bunches up a little bit. But you find as you curve the neck line around yourself, a lot of that is forgiven. So all you're really doing is encasing the edge of, the raw edge of what you're trying to do in order to secure it and give it a little bit of body. It's pretty simple, right? And then when you've got it all done, you can basically see how when you go around the curve here, this thing is just going to sort of stand up like a collar, more or less. And I'm going to cut this just about above the button here. And once you're all pinned, you have the option of how to attach it. What I normally do is I do a little overcast on the edge on both sides, like it's an applique, like a turned applique, to catch it. And then later on, you can do decorative stitching through here, like a sashiko or a cantha stitch, to give it some texture. I think this one's going to be actually kind of interesting here. It's just kind of a neck treatment, but not the whole front treatment. So that's the basics of it, and you can do it with any kind of fabric. You know, sometimes stripes work nicely. You could even use a piece of patchwork. I mean, this is something that I do a lot of times when I have leftover pieces, is to turn and use the strip of patchwork as a pattern. You can engineer these things by For instance, if you want this on the front, you could add 2 pieces to the side to make it big enough to turn. Or of course you could leave it ragged. Let me just show you what I'm thinking of doing here. I've added a little bit more to this robe here, getting a little bit away from brown, but I've got enough here to have the feel of it. I just wanted to see how thick I wanted to go for the binding. But what I did was I stripped together a bunch of pieces. I for some reason wanted to get that rainbow in here, so what I've done is I've pieced myself some strips here. It's about the same width, 4 inches. But I've decided to try this one ragged since I've never done that before. So I've done it in a way so that these are kind of staggered. The colors are kind of staggered. And I pieced these on the machine, but I did go in and do that little invisible baste here, because when you're working with patchwork, for another thing besides just a quilt, it's a great way to keep everything flat and secure as you go. And so the idea here is I think I'm just going to use the same method, but I think I'm going to attempt to just do this ragged style instead of turned. And of course there's nothing to keep you from cutting this into a shape either and appliquing that down from both sides.